Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to tie a parachute fly. One of my favorite patterns when it comes to dry flies, styles, not patterns. Very generic color, very useful size, and very successful pattern. So I'm going to talk about splitting tails, parachute hackle, dubbing techniques, so many different things, so stay up until the end and I hope you will learn something new. So let's talk about materials. So for the tail I'm going to use coq de lion because it looks so realistic and it can support the fly because of its stiffness with not too many barbs. So for this instance I will be using only 2 barbs split. For the body I will use mole's fur for the main body, this brownish that you can see, and I will use yellow, which is more or less floss, micro floss, but because it's floss and I want to reinforce it, I will run it through the beeswax. This is pure beeswax, so I will just run it a couple of times through the wax to reinforce it, to bond those strands together. For the parachute post I will be using Parapost by Hairline, and this is light done, and Hackle is whitening grizzly, but it has brownish hue to it. For the hook it's the Emco, it's 3769 SBBL 2, okay, you can see it now, in size 16. Compared to other hooks that I'm using, modern hooks, this size 16 is more like 18 or even smaller. So it's a very tiny hook, but it's very strong and very sharp, very reliable. Now I'll put the hook in the vise. I forgot to tell about thread. It's nano sealed by Semperfli, and there are a couple of reasons why I'll be using it, and I'll talk about it through the video. To start the fly, I'll run this thread through the wax because it will grip for the hook much better. So just run your fingers, thread through the fingers to remove the excess wax. Now I'll start the fly somewhere where I want my parachute post to begin. Because parachute post is going to be in my way, I want to do the tail now, and I want to do the ribbing part now. I'll take only 2 barbs from coq de lion feather I have. Okay, sometimes it's quite challenging to grab just 2 barbs. Okay, let's try another side. Now it should be easier. So just 2 barbs with the line tips, and that's it. Now I will measure hook length and I will remember this white spot. I will align it with the hook bend over here. That's all I need to do. Counter spinning the bobbin holder to make the thread jump into my fingers or stay in neutral. Now pull up to pull down. I'll go with flat thread towards the rear. Okay, now I'll counter spin the bobbin holder a bit more, and I'll just pull those barbs, tail barbs, couple of up, and I'll try to split them for start, just to split them a little bit. As you can see, not too much. By counter spinning the bobbin holder, I will make the thread jump to my left and in between those barbs towards down, and then I'll go around the hook and then from below again through the barbs. And now by pushing the thread towards the eye of the hook, I will split those barbs, and by torquing the thread around the hook I will see if the barbs are level. Now what is important is not to put too much pressure on the first few reps now, because you may displace the tails. You can add pressure up after a couple of reps, and that's it. After I finish forking the tails, I have nicely splayed them, I will add 1/3 of a clump of parachute post, well, power post wing. This may be a little bit too thick, so remove a couple of strands. And let me see. You don't want to have too many or too little. Just okay. Now I'll go from under, just engulf the hook. Now look this. 1, 2, 3. 2 or 3 are enough. Now I'll do the same behind. 1, 2, and because I'm using Semperfli Nano Silk, I can do one more and then start doing around. Now go down and press on the thread. Now look at this. Relatively loose wraps, 1 or 2, like 2 or 3, sorry, and then I'll pull towards me, and then 1, 2, and then pull towards me. So 1, next one goes above it, pull towards me, and push with my right hand, so compensate. So I'll pull the thread and push the parachute post so it stays on the top, vertical. And repeat that a couple of more times until you build up this parachute post as rigid and as tall as you wish. As you can see, it's getting even a little bit translucent. I'll build it up towards the bottom, repeating the process. The tightening process makes it more durable, makes it more stiff, rigid, which will definitely make things easier for you when you start wrapping the hackle around. Couple of more wraps around the base, and that's it. Now, for the parachute post, to have it nicely wrapped and securely wrapped, it's important that you have very flat surface over here, and as you can see, it's very flat. Now I want to add my ribs, and ribs, as I said, is yellow thread, yellow floss that's pre-waxed. Well, I waxed it. Now counter spin the bobbin holder. I'll attach it to my opposite side of me. One more wrap here, and then pull it out to the length, as you can see here. Secure it, and then just barely touch those tails. If you touch them, you may actually put them back together, which obviously you don't want because we put some effort into splaying them. Now next thing is to put some mold fur. Because I was dealing with wax, beeswax, my dry hands are actually quite they have quite a bit of friction now, so it's going to be easier for me to dub. If you have only dry hands, try using some hand lotion or whatever, just to make a little bit of friction over there. Now I will use a ridiculously small amount of dubbing for the first pinch, like you can't even see it, but it's there. So I'll unwrap 1, 2, and I'll tell you later why. Now I'll add some dubbing, press it against the thread, wrap it. Okay, I'm wrapping it. There is an empty space between dubbing and the hook, and these are 2 wraps that I unwrapped. You can obviously push the dubbing, but I want it like this now. Now I'll again take a ridiculously small amount of dubbing, as you can see, and then just push it against the thread, roll it, and it will stay on the thread. And I'll repeat the process a couple of times, with additionally adding some more dubbing as I advance down the thread, because I want to make some taper, but it's really tiny bit of taper. So I'm using really small amount of dubbing here because I don't want to make too much bulk on this fly. I may even have to remove some of it. So let's go. 1, 2, wraps that I actually took back, and then wrap forward, and then let me see, the noodle was not very nice here, so I have to go back and a little bit back to even it up. Let's see. Okay, now it looks better. Okay, there is tiny bit of that I don't need of dubbing. Now another important thing to do is to spin, if you look from above, to spin this rib clockwise. The reason for that is, like, when you release the tension, the thread will jump towards the eye, meaning that as you wrap, the thread will try to migrate towards the eye of the hook, not towards the tails, meaning that will make your job easier because it will work with you, not against you. Okay, now secure with a couple of wraps, secure the thread and cut the excess. Now what I like to do is I like to color maybe 1 or 2 centimeters of thread and build up a head. Just, I like to have a head on my fly. Not that fish will matter, fish will mind, but just that. Now it's time to add some hackle, and for hackle it's important to prepare it properly. So I'll just lift those barbs from the rakis here, remove a couple of them, and this should be okay. Now I'll make it asymmetrical here because I want this feather, so shiny side facing me, and I will wrap it clockwise direction, so meaning that these barbs will hit the post first. I want to remove a couple of those barbs, 3 or 4 of them. So as you can see, I have less on the lower and more on the upper side. And that will ensure that my first wrap goes on the bare rakis without any barbs sticking upwards. So let me demonstrate that for you. Secure it. Now what I want to do is I want those upper barbs that are more here, I want them to align. I want to align them with end of parachute post here, so more or less like this, meaning that I will catch rakis with couple of wraps. Let me just catch it again and lift it up, and I can say that that's good. Now I want to go with my thread all the way to parachute post and then up, pull the feather up and go with the thread around, making 1 revolution, 1 turn, 2 turns, and then pull towards you. It's like pull up to pull down. You don't want to rotate the feather. So I'll have to twist to turn around the hook a little bit so I can see better. Sorry for the shadow. But basically I'm building up same parachute post as I was building it prior to tying in the feather. So what's happening here, I'm just making this and then take the parachute post, pull against it and pull the thread, and then when I have 1 wrap, I don't know, okay, you can see it, 1 wrap less than the actual parachute post, I'll stop and go down, and that 1 less wrap will make space for the feather to lay flat, horizontal with the water. So let me do it. Okay, so it's also important to do everything with flat thread, because flat thread will allow you to make very smooth and even surface, which will allow your feather to lay perfectly flat, and that's important. Now when I'm satisfied with my result, I'll almost finish the fly by adding some thorax, and I'll use the same mole fur. I think it's claret color or something. I'll use it for the thorax. And here I'll show you a little trick that I use for covering it up. Try to make it as thin as you can, so less is more. Okay, not so easy to do on those small flies. Okay, now what I like to do is go in front all the way to the head, and then go back and then crisscross. That should be plenty. Yeah, so finish with the thread behind the post, and now you want to flip the fly in your vise like so, so you can have it, you can wrap the feather more easily. To reinforce everything, I like to use super glue in gel, and the reason for gel is obviously because it has more control to it as opposed to liquid one, which tends to run all around and mess up things. So I'll just add a tiny little drop of it. As you can see here, it's really tiny, it's blurry, so it's out of focus. But when I start wrapping the hackle will actually disperse it all around the parachute post. And the rigid part of the post is, look at this, first wrap goes on the top of it, and then every other wrap goes under it. Try to put those wraps as dense as you can, and the glue will obviously be dispersed all around. Now when those barbs start fighting you, it's time to stop wrapping the hackle. Secure it with your thread. Okay. Last corrections here. Now what I like to do is, as you can see, I have feather still sticking out. You can remove the parachute posts where you want it. So because it has crinkles in it, if you pull it, it will straighten. So give it a little bit of room to breathe, because it will pull back. So don't cut it the length you want it, because it will get actually shorter, but cut it longer and you'll get perfect size. And it's easier to cut it on water if you have too much than to imagine that you have enough if you cut it too short. By this time the thread has flattened. Okay, somewhere got stuck. Okay, I hope it will be good. Now I'll finish with my hands, primarily because I can work around everything here. And there are a couple of barbs that are under it, so I want to catch them with thread. Okay, I got those barbs. Now I can go around. So I want to go all around those barbs, lifting them up, because you want them horizontal with water, or parallel with water. I mean, bottom line is you can always cut the excess barbs. The easiest way to cut this hackle is just to slice your scissors, open those tips up very slightly, and then find the root of the feather. Let me just make it somehow visible for you guys. So let's go. Okay, so I'll just push my scissors against the rachis here. I won't close the scissors, just push them and pull the feather towards me. And the same thing I'll do with thread. So you gotta believe me when I said that I sliced with scissors through the thread, because You didn't see it, but I did it because it's really the easiest way to do that. So guys, this is finished fly. I hope you like it. I hope you learned something new here. If you did, please give it a like, subscribe, and see you next week.